Oh, and it's intercepted. Peyton Chismar, touchdown.
Nicely done by Peyton Chismar.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Myers.
And welcome into a very special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron tonight on the Westmoreland Sports Network. And Flick, this is one of our biggest shows each and every year. So excited to talk to 9 different Westmoreland County coaches. That means that all of them are in the WPIAL postseason. We will hear from John Ruane of Penn Trafford, Lance Getze of Franklin Regional, Greater Latrobe's Ron Prady, Matt Humbert of Bell Vernon area, Tim Bukowski of Southmoreland, Jason Fazikis of Mount Pleasant area, Greensburg Salem's Ty George, John Thompson of Greensburg Central Catholic, and last but not least, Thomas Pallone of Jeanette. That is a mouthful in itself. We will still have our Plays of the Week segment as well. We will look at all of the brackets in the WPIAL football postseason, 6A down to 1A. But first, Flick, before we get into all of that, let's look back at Week 9, the week that for many of these teams determined who would be postseason bound. And I think one of the fascinating aspects was only 3 of our teams had clinched heading into the final week. So there was a lot on the line and a lot of significant games on Friday.
Yeah, there definitely was, and there were some surprises as well, even though some teams lost, like Latrobe losing to Penn Trafford, Bell Vernon losing to Trinity, and both of those teams received wild cards, which being Westmoreland County proud like we are, we were excited to see that, but we weren't sure how that was going to kind of come out, especially I think Latrobe, we really weren't sure if they were going to get that wild card. Bell Vernon maybe felt a little bit better about it, even though they lost. So exciting to see those 2 teams make it. And obviously we kind of had a feeling that, we'd see some of the other teams make it, like Southmoreland and Greensburg Salem and Mount Pleasant, but you just didn't know going into the final week, who was going to get in. As you mentioned, just several teams that were guaranteed a spot. And that's what makes the last couple of weeks of the season really exciting. And hey, really excited to talk a lot of playoff football here tonight.
And really unpredictable this year more than ever before, because even after the games Friday night, we still didn't know the fate of several teams. We had to wait until Saturday when the WPIAL football committee announced their wild card selection. So there was no mathematical formula that
and
guarantees.
Jeanette and Riverview hadn't played yet either, Sean. So we had to wait for that game to end. Yes. And so did the committee before they released the 1A bracket.
Yeah. So let's look at all the games that unfolded this past Friday and, to your point, Saturday afternoon as well. Some of the games that we had broadcasts of: Penn Trafford, a 20-13 win over Greater Latrobe. Now, the good news is the Wildcats do get into the playoffs. And truthfully, Flick, I think that the fact that they hung tight and really, took Penn Trafford to the limit, I think maybe opened the eyes of the committee. But for PT, it's a big win as well. They finished 8-2. They knew they were locked into that second spot out of the conference, but man, they've got some real momentum heading into the postseason. So both teams, I think, can feel pretty happy after Friday.
Yeah, I feel like Penn Trafford's peaking at the right time. I think we've seen this in the past under John Ruane. The teams maybe don't get off to the best start all the time, but all of a sudden they find their groove and they really start peaking going into the postseason. I think we see that right now with Penn Trafford. And if you're Latrobe, you feel like you have new life right now. Again, they played Penn Trafford tough. It looked like that game might get away from Latrobe early, and they were able to get a big interception return for a touchdown, which kind of kept them, I think, in the game. And again, really, really played Penn Trafford tough. John Ruane said after the game, like, hey, Boomer knows us. He knows what, we're going to run. So it was two teams that know each other pretty darn well. They played each other in the WCCA final as well. I know it's just football and shorts, but back in July. So that was an interesting game. But yeah, both teams have to be feeling pretty good. Penn Trafford really, again, having that momentum going, and Latrobe maybe getting new life after playing pretty well against Penn Trafford.
Yeah, they certainly had a good accounting, even though it ultimately came up short. And maybe that, again, did prove the difference in allowing them to get a wild card selection. Well, no wild card needed for Franklin Regional, but a frantic rally was needed for the Panthers in their 29-26 win against Armstrong. That would have been a major upset. The Riverhawks were winless in the conference. just 2-7 overall. Franklin Regional had to score twice in the final 2 minutes. Now, again, it didn't really matter in terms of they were already locked into that third spot out of the Big East, but the last thing they wanted was to enter the postseason on a loss like that. So maybe some momentum from their late rally. Of course, you can go back and watch that one. I would definitely recommend it. There was some thrilling turn of events over the final couple of minutes. How about Greensburg-Salem, a 28-21 win over Southmoreland? So that, for all intents and purposes, guaranteed Greensburg-Salem a spot. Technically, they weren't guaranteed because they won the game by 7 points. If they had won it by 10 points, they would have guaranteed a spot. Instead, they got a wild card bid, but I think we knew once they went to 7-3 and had defeated Southmoreland, they would be in. The Scotties actually clinched in losing that game by just a touchdown, but I don't think that that's much consolation. I think the biggest issue for the Scotties, Dan, is they are ravaged by injuries, including some incredibly talented players. Elliot Primus was banged up and really was compromised. They were without Shawley, one of their best players defensively, and a pretty good running back as well. They're still not sure if he's going to be available. And then maybe the worst news of all is their quarterback, Anthony Smith, left with injury. So their playoff fate will be determined by if they can get guys back. On the other side, Ty George, man, what a great season. Not just getting into the playoffs, because we saw them do that under Coach Kiefer, but getting in with a 7-win record on their resume this year.
He's doing a tremendous job at Greensburg-Salem. You know, it's not easy to turn around programs that, you know, have been mediocre, like Greensburg-Salem, kind of up and down and really more down than up, unfortunately. But, you know, I think the kids believe in him, has a lot of energy, a young guy, and has a lot of values. You know what I mean? He's just a really, really good dude. And I think the players kind of matriculate to that. So congratulations to Ty. I was really happy for Greensburg-Salem. And for Southmoreland, man, like, you want to have that momentum going into the postseason. And not only did they lose going into the playoffs, now you have all these injuries to deal with. And you mentioned some really good players right there that's had some really good seasons that, you know, we've had a chance to watch Primus and Shawley and, of course, Anthony Smith. That's going to be really, really tough to overcome. Now, of course, we don't know, you know, what the status will be for those players, but I can't imagine all of them will play and be 100%. So it's definitely going to be a tough matchup for Southmoreland against Highlands on Friday.
Absolutely. You can go back and watch that game. Also, you can watch the play-by-play debut of Roger Downs. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll tell the whole story behind that. But the other game you can go back and watch, the Yaw Cougars, 55-14 over Dairy area. So they finished 3-7. So did the Trojans. I know this one didn't have playoff implications, but that's got to feel good for Benny Hoffer to get that win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kuroda, he texted me, and Benny did after the game, just to tell me how big of a game that he had. And he finished with 1,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards this season, which is incredible. Again, you know, Yacht goes as that kid goes. And even, you know, the losses that they've had this year, he's put up big performances. So he can only do so much. But yeah, congratulations to the Cougars and to him for having such a big game.
Other games that wrapped up the regular season on Friday, Mount Lebanon 42-20 over Norwin. That one was actually a blowout at the half, and the Knights got some points late in that one. They finished 2-8 and a 8-game losing streak. Remember, that was a team that beat Penn Trafford to open this season. Woodland Hills knocks off Kiski area 24-6. The Wolverines without their starting quarterback, but they still were able to win that one. Cavaliers probably realized they might have to win that game to get into the postseason. They did not. So they gave it a good run, but ultimately they missed out.
What a finish by Kiski. I mean, really, you know, they had Franklin Regional on the ropes. You know, they win that big game against Gateway. I mean, they really strung some wins together and really had a case, you know, getting that last wild card. Wild card, but the wild card in 5A, they really did.
Yeah, they would have an argument, but that's how it goes now. It's all kind of subjective when it comes to the wild cards. Trinity 31, Bell Vernon area 21. Now, we mentioned it didn't really cost the Leopards, which is a little surprising. We know that the Trinity's got a great quarterback in Williamson, and it seemed like kind of a recurring theme. The Leopards maybe weren't 100% all hands on deck in that game. The good news is, if there's one team in Westmoreland County that is battle-tested in the postseason, it's Bell Vernon area. So just the fact that they're in, as good as 4A is, they have to feel like, all right, at least we got a chance. That said, it's kind of shocking to see 4-4 And it came down to the wire. They had to sweat it out just to see if they would get in. They don't know that feeling for, the better part of a decade.
Yeah, they would always clinch very early, maybe one of the first teams to clinch, especially the last 2 years and even really longer than that. But I think, Sean, if you want a dark horse, you look at these brackets, I think Bell Vernon has to be one of the dark horses. I'm not just talking Westmoreland County teams, but in the entire WPIAL 4A bracket.
Yeah, again, they are a two-time defending state champions, albeit in 3A. So a lot of the guys that they have were big parts of those deep postseason runs. Elizabeth Forward claims the conference championship in Class 3A interstate play with a 56-26 victory over Mount Pleasant area. The Vikings without their starting quarterback, Cole Chatfield. They hung in there for a while, but EF ultimately closed it out in the second half. Deer Lakes blows out Burrell 56-0. No postseason for the Buccaneers, nor will there be for the Valley Vikings. The lone Westmoreland County team that finished winless at 0-10 after their 45-20 loss against Highlands. Apollo Ridge gets its first win of the season at the expense of Ligonier Valley in a close one. The Vikings winning 31-28. The Rams finished 3-7. They are not in the postseason.
And how about the season for John Jablanowski? Can we give him a little round of applause?
Yes. Him and his brother. Mark balled out too as a receiver. Those guys put up big numbers. Unfortunately, there was a lot of games where the defense didn't do enough, and that, I think, was kind of an example in that loss against Apollo Ridge. Greensburg Central Catholic wins a big one, 20-16 against Leechburg, so they get second place in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to be honest, that is a surprising outcome. We knew GCC was a good team, but I think that is their best win of the year. I know they had a good win against Jeanette, but to go to Leechburg and to slow down a prolific offense, hold them to just 2 touchdowns, big time props for the Centurions. And we'll get to it in a little bit, but they got rewarded by the committee as a result of that, Dan.
They absolutely did. And yeah, I mean, the impressive part was the defense and how well they played. Leechburg has been putting up so many points this year, unless they play Clairton, which anybody that plays Clairton doesn't score. So that was really impressive. And, as a coach, it makes you feel good, I think, when your defense can do that, and only allow 16 points and you score 20. That's a good thing. And now they can ride some of that momentum going into the first round game against Menneson.
And a game that we had to wait a little bit longer for, as we mentioned, on Saturday, Jeanette 34-20 knocking off Riverview. We probably thought the Jayhawks would get in no matter what, but they didn't want to leave it to chance. They won that game to secure their spot in the playoffs. They kind of were a slam dunk after they went to 7-3, knocking off the Raiders. Menneson loses 41-6 against Cornell. And how about this outcome? This was the only non-conference game in Westmoreland County, but it might have had as big of an impact as any of them in terms of the postseason. Hempfield area 41, Gateway 21. And I would say that Ron Prady should be writing a thank you letter to the Spartans and Coach Nick Kiefer, because by knocking off Gateway, even though it was non-conference, I would have to imagine the committee noticed that and maybe said, well, Greater Latrobe probably is more deserving than Gateway, because it felt like it was those two teams primarily, with Kiski kind of looming third, to determine which would get into the postseason.
And I guess that's kind of neat, right? Like Hempfield, now that there's so much debate and I guess opinion, or however you want to say it, that goes into, these wild cards as opposed to just Gardner points, or, as opposed to wins and losses and that kind of thing. Now you go into the last game of the regular season, a non-conference game, and it probably was a must win for Gateway. And if you're Hempfield, you go into that knowing you're not going to make the playoffs, but you have a chance to ruin a team season that's one of the best programs every single year in the WPIAL. And I know Nick Kiefer is trying to build right now and set those building blocks. And this was a great win to be able to do that. I was talking to him a little bit over the weekend, and he said, I believe this is the only time that we've ever beaten Gateway. And they were down in the game 21-0. And I know how proud of, that he is of the kids, and Dom Dietrich, a couple of touchdowns through the air, had a really, really good season, and he's going to come back next year as well. Now, Gateway is going to bring a lot back next year too. They have a really, talented young quarterback as well, but that's a big, big win for the Hempfield program.
And again, I don't know if the committee flat out said this. I know sometimes they're kind of generic with their answers, right? They say body of work, whatever. They don't go into a lot of details more times than not. But I would say this: if you're a head coach, you see that, all of a sudden you're thinking next year we play, a non-conference game week 7, like we see so many of these teams do. You have to treat it like it's a conference game, because maybe that ultimately dictates whether you get in or out if it comes down to the wild card. Now, you hope it doesn't come down to that. You take care of business, you get an automatic spot. But for a team like Gateway, I honestly think Gateway wins that game. They probably get into the playoffs over Greater Latrobe. Nonetheless, the Spartans win it. They finish 4-6. On the college side of things, Seton Hill gets a big win on homecoming, 31-16. Some massive performances for the Griffins. We'll see one in just a little bit. They are now 3-5. St. Vincent did not have the same success as the Bearcats, fall 69-7 against Carnegie Mellon. St. Vincent just 1-7. Let's look at the top performers from week 9, the final week of the regular season across the WPIAL, and then specifically in Westmoreland County, the top passer, rusher, and receiver. Joey Felitsky of North Catholic is the top passer. He throws for 370 yards on 25 of 31 passing. The aforementioned Dom Dietrich of Hempfield area goes for 224 on 20 of 30 passing. Carson Heinley in his swan song for Kiski area, 11 of 17 for 172. 172 also for Raiden Kuroda of Yonk on just a late 8 of 11 passing. Very efficient for Kuroda. Tristan Tavares of Norwin, 13 of 29 for 158. And Kimani Brown of Jeanette, 3 of 11 for 154 yards. The top rusher, a name that we've seen probably about a handful of times now between last year and this year, Armon Hill of West Mifflin, 241 yards on the ground. The top Westmoreland County rusher, John Jablonovsky of Ligonier Valley, who went for 194. Tasso Whipple continues to move up the career rushing list for Penn Trafford. He compiled 163 yards. Kimani Brown, again for Jeanette, one is the top passer, now a top rusher as he goes for 153. Samir Crosby of Greensburg Central Catholic, 149 on the ground. And Raiden Kuroda, he appears twice as well for the Cougars, 134 yards. The top receiver with 151 yards through the air is Laurel's Tyler Shearer on 6 receptions. Zach Pauling of Norwin makes an appearance for the first time, 6 grabs, 116 yards. And Noah Sunder of Jeanette, 2 receptions for 110 yards. Do the math, Flick, 55 yards per reception.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you confirmed.
I confirm. I concur. Yes.
Yes. Well, that will do it for this opening segment. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will have our biggest plays of the week edition, perhaps of all time. It is jam-packed. You got to stick around for that. And then afterwards, we'll look at all of the playoff brackets, and we will interview 9 different Westmoreland County head coaches. That's all coming on this special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Play It Again Sports in Greensburg is your locally owned and operated sporting goods store. We set ourselves apart by offering a wide variety of both new and used equipment at competitive prices. Located in the Greengate East Plaza, below Walmart, Play It Again Sports' knowledgeable staff will help you and your family prepare for every athletic season. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or trade, we are here as your one-stop shop. At Play It Again Sports in Greensburg, everybody plays.
At Smale Kia, we know that winning takes hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. By sponsoring Shining Stars, we'll select 2 teams each season to help fund their booster programs. Rewarding their hard work, athletic progress, and community service is an investment we're proud to make. Right now, lease a 2025 Kia Sportage EX all-wheel drive, $299 a month, or lease a 2024 Kia Forte LXS for only $175 a month. Route 30 East Greensburg or smalekia.com.
Welcome back to this special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We still have so much to get to. All the brackets, 6A through 1A, 9 different head coaching interviews. But without any further ado, let's jump into plays of the week. Flick, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready, Sean. Sure.
All right. We start with Franklin Regional, and the Panthers engineered a remarkable late rally against Armstrong, which included recovering an onside kick. From there, FR drove near the goal line, and then quarterback Chase Lemke did the rest, as detailed by Jonathan Whaley.
The Panthers have no timeouts left. They give it to
the field. Look, Lipke's going to run it around the near side. Lipke's got a lane. Lipke will dive. Touchdown. 2-yard touchdown run by Chase Lipke with 34 seconds left. And that was close, but he runs it in. A 2-yard touchdown run by senior quarterback Lipke. It's now 27-26 Franklin Regional.
Couple of seniors continuing to lead the way offensively for Franklin Regional. Kyle Dupill rushed for 200 yards again. And Chase Lemke with the big touchdown right there. Franklin Regional takes the lead.
Yeah, and they barely hung on for a massive victory for the Panthers.
Armstrong, last play of the game. It was that close, man. They almost got, not necessarily a Hail Mary, but close enough.
Yeah, almost had Jaden Daniels results. We continue plays of the week with Penn Trafford in a game that featured as many defensive touchdowns as offensive touchdowns. It was a kicker who proved the difference. Freshman Jack Miller delivered a clutch field goal, a couple of them actually, but this one as time expired in the first half, with myself and John Bainbridge providing the commentary.
Trying to extend this to a 2-score game. 34-yard attempt for Miller. Kick is up, it has the distance, and that kick is good.
Right down the middle. Nice kick.
Clutch boot by the 9th grader, Jack Miller, and that will do it for the first half. Points with all zeros on the clock. The Warriors take a 17-7 lead into the locker room. Final game of the regular season. It's a Westmoreland County clash. Penn Trafford, Greater Latrobe, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
That's awesome, Sean. Giving a little love to the special teams. You must have been watching the Steeler games lately. Probably not. You're fixated on the 49ers. But Jack Miller, they have been blessed with some really good kickers at Penn Trafford. And I guess you got to give credit to the coaching staff for finding them and helping develop them. But only a freshman, man. That's a big kick.
Do you think John Ruane goes out there and instructs how to kick like a 35-yard field goal?
To say he's
not
older
35
than
years old. He wishes.
Yeah, I'd love to see him do that, actually.
Hey, maybe next training camp we'll get that for some plays that we can put on our camp preview. All right, we'll stay in that same game and look at the Greater Latrobe side of things as the Wildcats took the game down to the wire, fueled by a huge defensive play by Andy Tash that pulled his team closer in the third quarter, with, again, myself and John detailing the action.
And the Northeast will not get any. Now, that could change, but I would say probably the odds are favoring that.
Yeah, Moon and South Fayette.
That one is intercepted by Andy Tash, and as a second pick six of the night this time, Greater Latrobe strikes defensively.
Great anticipation there by Tash. He sort of lulled Louver into throwing that, but made a great break on the football.
Pick six times 2. A couple of safeties have found the end zone. Derek Carr first, and now Andy Tash, the younger brother of Alex, getting his team right back in it.
Andy Tash doing a great job of jumping the route right there, and that turned 17-7 into 17-14 real fast, and all of a sudden the Wildcats right back in it.
The crazy thing is, that wasn't my favorite defensive play that he made. It had to be the one that we put on Plays of the Week, but you may remember, Flick, there was a 4th down, and the Warriors threw a ball deep, and he could have intercepted it, and he just batted it down.
Awesome.
Just about any other player, even NFL players, intercept that, and they probably sacrifice, 30 yards by doing so?
And I think all of us, like you, John, and I, all of us kind of like for a split second, we're like, what does he do? Oh, that was a great play. And again, most people, you mentioned, every level, they don't do that. But that was smart, because if he would have intercepted that, he'd have got tackled, and they would have lost, 20, 30 yards of field position?
Yeah, but instead a turnover on down. So he had a big game for the Wildcats, including that pick six. We continue plays of the week at Greensburg-Salem, and the Golden Lions earned a massive win against Southmoreland last Friday. The defense had a big hand in that. Peyton Chismar notched another pick six. We had a few of them now that padded the home team's lead in the third quarter, with Dave Franzak and Roger Downs setting the scene.
Just add that to the list of injuries tonight.
Play clock winding down for the Scotties. Pass.
Take the handoff. Thrown, it's intercepted. Chismar, Peyton Chismar, touchdown.
Nicely done by Peyton Chismar. Read the route. Southmoreland has run that route a couple of times this evening, all for completions except for once. This time, Peyton Chismar jumps the route, his senior night. Well done, Peyton.
So one Chismar takes a pick six to the Haas, and then you got Brody Chismar, his brother, throwing 2 touchdown passes. So a big game for the Chismars and a big win for Greensburg-Salem at offense.
And a big win for pick sixes. We had so many of them. We mentioned, of course, there was a couple in that Penn Trafford-Greater Latrobe game. And then, of course, Chismar there. Big play for the Golden Lions. Well, it came at the expense of our next team for Plays of the Week, Southmoreland and the Scotties. Well, they responded quickly after that, courtesy of Cam Phillips, whose long run got them right back in the game, with Roger providing the play-by-play.
Yes.
3:35 remaining in the quarter number 3. Phillips, the ball carrier. Nice cut inside, breaks it to the outside. And he's into the end zone. And a flag after he gets into the end zone.
How about it? Roger calling the touchdown. Yeah, I mean, he's a color analyst, and do we ever know what the flag was for? I don't know.
I think it was like a unnecessary block in the back after Phillips basically had gotten into the end zone.
So I have to say why Roger was calling, maybe not specifically. I'll just leave it at this. Roger says that there was chili at halftime. Dave Franzak ate some of this chili, and then he just disappeared for a while. He came back, but he disappeared for a while to use the facility.
But he's A-okay now. He is fully recovered. So yeah, Roger got his moment. Roger got his moment in the sun. So who knows? Maybe that will be his next.
He even thanked everybody else that was helping him.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Well, we thank him as always. He was he gets a game ball, I believe. That was the message, right?
Franzak's giving him a game ball. And then, of course, we had Seton Hill the next day at Offutt, and everyone was like ribbing him, joking around a little bit about his play-by-play.
Yeah. Well, I had to be on my A game there because Roger was looming.
No doubt.
Nonetheless, we continue Plays of the Week with Yawk and Raiden Kuroda. He finished his Cougars career with a stellar game against Dairy Area. He wasted no time in establishing himself with a bomb to Aiden Schaefer in the first quarter, with John Flickinger and Bob Lisinski on the call.
As Kuroda takes the snap, he's back, he wants to go deep again, wide open, and caught for the touchdown! That pass was caught and pulled in by Aiden Schaefer, who had the touchdown last week against Greensburg-Salem. He pulls that one in, and wide open for the score. Yawk is on the board first. They lead 6-0.
Yeah, and like you said, John, I'm sure, they saw what, Mount Pleasant did to Trojan secondary last week, and here it is, the first drive, capped off by a 30-yard touchdown pass.
Wow, what a terrific throw. He hit Schaefer right before he goes out of the back of the end zone, and Schaefer got a lot of separation there, too, so great job by both guys, and the Cougars with a big touchdown right there.
Yeah, what a great way for them to win their final game of the season and to kind of maybe carry some momentum into the offseason. Well, let's carry some momentum into the final play here on Plays of the Week. It's at the college level with Seton Hill, and the Griffins enjoyed a successful homecoming on Saturday against Clarion, and Todd Phillips was a huge part of it as he made a spectacular grab moments into the third quarter that put the Griffins in the lead, with myself and Roger Downs highlighting that catch.
That was almost certainly going to yield some points on that drive for the Griffins. Big shot here to Phillips, and he makes the catch. There goes Phillips, and he will score an 80-yard touchdown.
Phillips using every inch of his 6 over the shorter Blackwell. Good for the Griffins score. Bends the Batchin into the game for the extra point. Here is the replay.
That is a 50-50 ball. And Blackwell just got mossed. Phillips, a special play when the Griffins sorely needed it. Now a chance to take the lead on the PAT.
All right, I am boycotting ESPN. We got Jared Garn's catch on You Got Mossed and SportsCenter Top 10. I didn't think Phillips' catch would get on SportsCenter Top 10, but I thought it had a great chance of getting on You Got Mossed and didn't get on there. So I did watch the Monday Night Football game, the Steelers game, so I guess I'll start my boycott now. But that was a terrific catch, and Seton Hill with a big win.
Yes, and he had almost 250 receiving yards. He had a big boy performance in that victory. That will do it for Plays of the Week, but we are just getting started on this very special postseason edition. When we come back, we will start running down all of the brackets. We will hear from 9 different Westmoreland County coaches, including the trio in Class 5A, John Ruane, Lance Getzey, and Ron Prady. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Drive like a champion with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville. You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. Customize your payments, apply for financing, get a value for your trade and more with the Bowser Express Store. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
It's prime time for prime rib at D'Annunzio's every Friday and Saturday night. Get yourself a 12-ounce queen cut for $26 or a 16-ounce king cut for $29. The prime rib is seasoned, slow roasted, served with au jus and horseradish, vegetables, and a choice of pasta or potato, and comes with super salad too. Remember, D'Annunzio's prime rib special every Friday and Saturday after 4 at all 3 of our restaurant locations.
Back here on a jam-packed playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean and Dan here. And now, Flick, let's get to the playoffs. The biggest time of year in high school football in Western Pennsylvania, the WPIAL postseason. Now, we have Westmoreland County teams in 4 of the 6 brackets, but we'll run them all down very quickly. 6A. Unfortunately, Hempfield area and Norwin missed out. The Spartans just narrowly missing out on the playoffs. This is the only one that there's no subjectivity. It is clear-cut, formulaic, Central Catholic, Pittsburgh Central Catholic, as we often refer to them as. The number 1 seed, they will battle Seneca Valley, the number 4 seed. That will actually not be this upcoming week. That will be the following Friday, because they only have 4 teams, smaller bracket. So that will be Friday, November 8th. And then the 2-3 matchup, North Allegheny will host Mount Lebanon. The championship, the subsequent week, will be Saturday, November 16th. That will be at Norwin High School, not at 6 o'clock, at 6:05 p.m. It will be broadcast on TBS. That's the reason for that. So I'm kind of joking. It's not really going to be on TBS, but nonetheless, that is the 6A bracket.
Remember when the Atlanta Braves used to be on TBS all the time?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Okay, just wondering.
And WCW.
Yes, they were. Huh?
Okay. Let's jump into the 5A bracket. This one we love because we have followed 5A closely all year because of all the Westmoreland County teams in it. And 3 of our teams did make the cut. We'll hear from those coaches momentarily. The number 1 seed earning a bye, the Pine Richland Rams. They will face the winner of number 8 North Hills and number 9 Franklin Regional. That will be not at North Hills High School, but at their home field, Martirelli Stadium. All of these first-round games, by the way, will be Friday at 7 o'clock. Number 4 seed Woodland Hills, they win the Big East Conference. They get a bye. They will battle the winner of 5th seeded Bethel Park and number 12 Greater Latrobe. That will be at Bethel Park High School. On the opposite side of the bracket, number 2 Upper St. Clair gets a bye, and the Panthers will await the winner of number 7 Penn Hills and 10th seeded Moon. That will take place at Penn Hills. Number 3, the defending champion Peters Township Indians also earn a bye to the quarterfinals and will play either number 6 Penn Trafford, which will host number 11 South Fayette. That, of course, will be Friday at 7, a rare 7 o'clock start at Penn Trafford high school.
So what are they going to do? They're not going to know what to do.
I know. Hopefully the Warriors aren't 30 minutes late starting in terms of when they really get into the game. So we'll talk to the coaches momentarily. We'll let them really break down their matchups and whatnot. But, Penn Trafford getting a 6 seed, I think that's kind of what we expected. They have a tough matchup, but I think a winnable one against South Fayette. That's one where I think PT should be favored. The Lions coming in on a 4-game losing streak. Franklin Regional and North Hills is going to be a really, really good matchup. A couple of teams that, weren't really in title contention for their conferences, but are two really good teams. And then Bethel Park is going to be favored against Greater Latrobe, no doubt. But we see the Wildcats make a run the last 2 years in the postseason, albeit in 4A. And remember, last year they came so close to pulling off a stunner against Aliquippa. So Bethel Park's a great team, but I don't think Greater Latrobe is going to be afraid of anyone. Overall, I think we're going to have a chance to see, at least 2 wins from Westmoreland County teams. And I think it's a great bracket. 1 through 12, it is absolutely loaded with great teams, some of the very best that the WPIAL has to offer.
Yeah, the no-brainers, Pine Richland, Upper St. Clair at the top. But, I don't want to say it's anybody's bracket, but I think it's a lot of, I think we were really looking forward to this even a couple of weeks ago, knowing what this bracket could provide, a lot of great matchups. And, again, I give, obviously, Penn Trafford is a favorite and, Franklin Regional, even though they're the 9 seed, they're playing the 8. But, hey, I give Latrobe a shot, as well. I think, again, they're kind of saying, like, hey, we have new life here. Let's go out and, prove people wrong, that type of thing. They've gotten away now from Alex Tash, like playing without him a little bit. They're more used to it, I think. So I think that helps a little bit. Andy Tash stepped up last week, so see what happens.
Yeah, and this is actually, I think, a welcome change for this bracket. Previously years, they had their championship at Norwin High School, right, but it is back down at Acrisure this year. So that will be a cool moment. Last year it was Pine Richland and Peters Township, but they played at Norwin. And we love Norwin, but it's not the same as playing at Acrisure Stadium. So I think it is very fitting that they expand to a 12-team bracket. It's a great one, and the winners will be crowned at Acrisure Stadium in Class 5A. All right, so we got 3 coaches to get to, so we'll go by the best seed first. Let's hear from Penn Trafford's head coach, John Ruane, before their matchup against number 11, South Fayette. First off, John, congrats on getting into the postseason once again. And you go in with some momentum, including that win over Greater Latrobe last Friday. So what stood out about how your team finished the regular season?
Well, obviously we're happy that we went from 2-2 to 8-2. After we were 2-2, after the Woodland Hills loss, we just didn't think we were clicking on all cylinders. And while we thought we were doing a lot of good things, we weren't putting all 3 phases together at the same time. So we had a pretty good team discussion, and our first goal was to go 8-2 to win the last 6 games. So I'm really proud of the kids for their resolve in that situation and getting us to where we're at. So, we couldn't have done much better after that point of the year. So very happy with our progress.
Let's talk about the win against Greater Latrobe. You already knew you were locked into that second spot out of the Big East, so you didn't have a ton to play for in that regard. Obviously, your seeding could be impacted by a win or loss, but your team still had a good effort and really controlled the second half by maintaining the football. So what did you like from the win against the Wildcats?
I like that we showed up to play. Like you said, it wasn't going to – we probably could have dropped to 7 or 8 had we lost. We wanted to try to get as high of a seed as we could. But long story short, it was, the kids only get 10 guaranteed games. And then, from here on out, it's however long you can last. So we weren't going to stop guys, sit guys. We were going to play to win just because they earned the opportunity. So credit to them. I thought we played outstanding. We had a couple of big ones called back. But other than that, I thought we ran the ball pretty effectively against a really good defense that knows pretty much everything we say and do. So that was a challenge in itself. But I thought our defense stood tall again. They had one good drive. But other than that, I thought we did a good job of shutting them down and just played a really overall good football game.
And the Wildcats still got into the postseason as a wild card team. What was that moment like when the game ended and you went up and saw Coach Ron Prady, your former longtime assistant?
It was, awkward's not the word, but it's not fun. You would think it would be fun maybe for people on the outside, but this is a guy that we all worked with for 10 years. I mean, we know how much time we spend in that football office and preparing and, joking around and all the stuff that comes with coaching. So I'm really happy for him and how good his program has performed over the last 3 years. But it's not fun going against them.
So you get in as the number 6 seed, which means a first-round matchup against number 11 South Fayette. Was that pretty much what you had anticipated after the win on Friday?
Yeah, we thought we'd either get South Fayette or Moon. I mean, we had already played Moon, and typically the WPIAL doesn't schedule against an opponent you played earlier in the year. So we were kind of betting, I guess, on South Fayette. Although we really didn't do anything with that. We just kind of sat around and waited until the announcement came, and then we got to work.
Well, they had a great start to the season, winning their first 6 games, but they ran into some tough teams in the conference and finished with 4 consecutive losses. That said, obviously they still have a lot of talent, including at quarterback. So when you look at them, what really jumps out?
Well, he is definitely a talented quarterback, both throwing and running the football. Very, very good arm, very efficient running the ball. They have some talent on the perimeter that he gets the ball to. So this is a team that's probably a little more than half pass, which is semi-rare in high school. So our secondary is really going to be tested. Our pass rush is really going to be tested. But we're not just going to play the pass because obviously these guys can run the football as well. So it's a dynamic offense we have to prepare for. And then defensively, man, they bring a ton of pressure from all kind of different places. So it's a little bit unique in that regard. We went from a couple of defenses that are bend but don't break the last few weeks to, I don't want to say exotic, but a team that really likes to bring the heat and show you different looks and kind of confuse you. So we definitely have to do a great job up front of seeing all these things, communicating, and then going playing.
Anything else that jumps out that would ultimately dictate wins or losses on Friday?
No, it's just a really well-coached team that is really battle-tested in a tough conference. As you said, we know that in the playoffs, in particular, your seniors, they're all playing with desperation, knowing it could be their last game. And, we openly talk about that on our team. And we don't want our guys playing with fear. We want them playing, with urgency. But they got to understand, any kind of lack of effort could be their last time. So I think you see a lot of urgency moving forward.
Lastly, on that point, the senior group were around for that championship run, WPIAL and state titles in 2021. They also were around last year when the game kind of got away from you and it was a lopsided loss against Penn Hills. So is there a motivation to get back to having a postseason run once again?
Yeah, of course there is. We really had a sour taste after last season. Even 2 years ago when these guys were sophomores, we had a lot of adversity and didn't overcome that either, and got bounced in the first round. So we've been talking for a long time about how our program needs to go on a playoff run again, and these are the guys to do it. Hopefully we put everything together and beat South Fayette on Friday.
Well, John, thanks so much as always for taking the time. Congrats on getting to the playoffs and good luck going forward.
Thanks a lot, Sean. I appreciate it.
That's John Ruane, the head coach of Penn Trafford. As always, we appreciate John Ruane taking the time. Now, I know he wanted to do a Zoom interview.
We couldn't see him.
Yeah, schedule did not kind of work out. We thought we were going to have a chance to do it one night. But nonetheless, he's always up for a phone interview. So you'll just have to pretend that you were watching John Ruane there instead of listening to him. But he's also spent a lot of time getting ready for this matchup. South Fayette, a 4th place team. They're a 5th place team, but they're a really, really good team. And we know that they got off to such a great start winning their first 6 games. So that's going to be a real challenge. I think that'll be a fun matchup. And that's a game that I'm going to be at broadcasting in some way, shape, or form. So we're looking forward to that one. We're also looking forward to Franklin Regional and North Hills because, again, the Panthers have proven to be a team that gets to the postseason. They'll have a real challenge against the Indians to see if they can move on in the playoffs. But I know one person ready for that challenge. That is their head coach, Lance Getzy. Let's now hear from him. Looking forward to the 8-9 matchup against the Indians. First off, Lance, congrats on getting in. Now, I would imagine it was a little interesting heading into the final week of the regular season. You knew you were locked into a spot, and it seemed like you would maybe be upset for a little bit, but your team came roaring back late, 2 scores in the final 2 minutes. Was it challenging for the players going in, knowing that they really had nothing to gain in terms of the fact that you're already locked into the third spot out of your conference?
I don't know if it was challenging. I think they said the right things. They believed that they understood that they wanted to start off the playoffs, going into the playoffs with a win instead of 3 losses in a row. I definitely feel like the kids understood what they had to do, but I'm not sure if we put together the best week of practice leading into that game.
Well, you were able to find a way to make it work. So I would imagine you don't want to have to rely on a last-second comeback and an onside kick and all that again. But was there some momentum that you could take forward the way that you won that game in dramatic fashion?
No doubt. I mean, I think you'd take the just the mentality of the kids at that point, and the fact that they didn't want to give up, and they felt the sense of urgency. We just want to feel that sense of urgency at the beginning of the game from now on.
So courtesy of that 29-26 win against Armstrong, your team is now 7-3. Now, you mentioned you did have a little bit of a skid prior to that, but overall, how did you evaluate how the regular season went?
Ups and downs. I think we started off the season very well. We were putting together, some good games, but then I don't think we ever really, after that first couple games, we didn't put 48 minutes together in all facets of the game. If our offense was moving the ball, maybe our special teams or defense wasn't doing something. If our defense was shutting people down, maybe our offense wasn't doing something. So it's just finding a way to get all 3 facets of the game working together and, maintaining good field position, controlling the ball, limiting turnovers, and then creating some as well. So putting that all together for 48 minutes is the key.
Well, one person who's put it together all 48 minutes all season is Kyle Dupill. He must have had one of the best seasons in Franklin regional history and one of the better seasons in recent memory in Westmoreland County for a running back as well. The fact that he was able to produce pretty much every single game, start to finish, what does that say about the type of player he is?
He's just really the key to our offense. When he's going to get something going every week, that's one person we could count on is going to get something. With the credit of the offensive line and what they're able to do. So we know what we're getting from Kyle. We just got to be able to, when we get down inside that 10, be able to finish drives. But that kid has been just tremendous with seeing holes, finding holes, and creating yards after contact. I don't know if I've seen anything better than that or coach anything better than that than what he's done this year.
So you get the number 9 seed, and as I mentioned, you go against number 8 North Hills at Martorelli Stadium. How did the 9 seed in that matchup align with what maybe you had anticipated going in?
Pretty much exactly what we thought would happen. We knew we were at 8-9, somewhere in that area, and we figured North Hills would be right there. So we kind of expected that, just because both finished in third in our conferences.
So it's a team that you've gone against recently. I know obviously they're a very talented program. What stands out about the Indians?
Just their aggressiveness. Those kids just they come to compete every game. It's always been a good contest between the two of us every year. So we're expecting nothing different. Well-coached team, very disciplined. They fly to the ball on defense and offensively. They're very sound. So it's going to be a big challenge.
I think most coaches would agree that this is a loaded bracket. So there's some real depth. It's not just 1 or 2 teams that stand above the rest. So this should be a really good matchup, 8-9. Often it's kind of the most even matchup on paper. Do you look at 2 teams that are pretty similar in terms of their overall ability?
I do. I think we're both a little bit undersized for 5A up front. Nothing like Upper St. Clair has a huge line and some other teams, but I just think both teams are aggressive. And I think the things that we bring to the table, just the discipline and just the work ethic is very similar. So I think it's going to be a great matchup.
What are some of the biggest keys for the Panthers to get the win?
Finish drives, play good special teams, control the field position. I think that's going to come down to a big part of it is field position.
Lastly, I know getting to the postseason is special. You want to embrace that, but you also have to have a laser focus. So how do you balance as a coach kind of the joy, the excitement, the nerves, the anticipation, everything that comes with postseason football?
We've been in the postseason every year I've been been here. So I think it's just something, just the extra attention to details. You're not facing somebody that's in your conference, so a little bit more film time. And, at this point in the year, everybody's a little bit banged up. So monitoring how much you hit and practice all week, but still get accomplished what you need to is really is key to having success on a Friday night.
Well, it should be a great matchup. We are looking forward to it, Lance. Thanks so much, and congrats on the postseason appearance once again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That is Lance Getsy, the head coach of Franklin Regional. We appreciate Lance Getsy for taking the time. I think he was in the locker room there. I mean, that guy at this time of year, he's just living at the school and the football field, right? I mean, you got to at this point.
I'm surprised he got anything out, like a signal in that locker room. I know how hard it is to get like a cell phone signal out of that place. But I'm glad they must have some decent Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Now, is that where Jonathan Whaley interviews them, or they actually do that out on the field?
I think I don't know that they go into the locker room, maybe just outside of it. But in the past, we have interviewed former coach Greg Botta in there and some other guys. The great Dane Brown back in the day was right in that locker room. Actually, the coach.
Speaking of which, by the way, I know our Westmoreland alum Q&A, Trevor Brinsick shouted out Coach Botta, the legendary head coach that he played for. He's doing some good stuff up at Allegheny now, quarterback and punter for the Gators. So check that out if you get an opportunity. A guy who had a lot of success during his time at Franklin Regional. I'm sure he'll be cheering on the Panthers this Friday against North Hills. One more team in Westmoreland County in this bracket. It is the last team in, Greater Latrobe. They had to sweat it out, but the Wildcats get in. They get that final spot and their reward going to Bethel Park to play the 5th-seeded Blackhawks. 3 years, 3 postseason appearances for their head coach, Ron Prady. He knows about making deep postseason runs, both as a head man and as a longtime assistant at Penn Trafford. Let's now hear from Ron Prady, Boomer, talking about the matchup against Bethel Park. Ron, first off, I would imagine after the loss against Penn Trafford on Friday, you probably weren't quite sure if you're going to be in the postseason or not. So what was that like after that narrow loss against PT, 20-13, having to wait about 12 hours or so before you found out your postseason fate?
Yeah, well, we figured it came down to Moon and South Fayette getting in, and then it would we didn't think anybody from the north would get in, and then I guess it came down to us and Kiski and Gateway. And we were fortunate that the committee felt we were worthy and picked us, but we were unsure until the brackets actually came out.
So the loss against Penn Trafford, the fact that you were very competitive, a game that came down to the wire, probably helped your cause. In that 20-13 setback, what did you like from your team's performance, and where did you see areas that you need to get better?
Well, there's always areas we need to get better, but I thought, we played fairly well defensively overall. The second half, they obviously dominated the time of possession, and we only had 2 short possessions in the whole second half. But the big thing was they scored 20 points, and one of them was a pick 6. So defensively, we thought we played pretty well. There were times we moved the ball on offense, and one time we didn't capitalize in the red zone. So we've got to be better in that area. And our tackling, the 34 for PT is pretty good running back, and we would have liked to cut down on the yards after contact, but he has a lot to do with that. So I did like these last couple of weeks, though, is our kids, their fight, knowing that our backs were against the wall at Gateway, played a great second half to pull that out, and played another really good team this Friday. And it was a physical battle, but we were right in it till the end.
You talk about your defensive effort. Andy Tash had a pick 6 for your squad, and then he also could have had another interception, and he had a real heads-up play to bat the ball down on 4th down to actually save you some yardage. What has stood out about his play recently?
Well, I think his tackling has improved tremendously from last year to this year. Andy's has pretty good instincts back there at safety, and coupled with his ball skills back there are also pretty good. So we've seen a ton of improvement the whole year out of Andy. On that pick 6, he runs better again this year than he has in the past too. So Andy's just a hardworking kid that wants to get better every day and every week. And we expect that same kind of improvement out of him going into next year.
With the success that your team had, especially in the playoffs the last couple of years, it was a pretty high bar, even though you were moving up to Class 5A this year. And early on in the season, your team was having great success. Obviously, a pretty significant injury changed the trajectory a little bit with Alex Tash going out. But would you have felt like this would have been a major disappointment if your team did not get in the postseason this year?
I don't know about major disappointment. I mean, I don't know that we, made it a goal to make the playoffs. We're in now. We're going to try to win and extend our season as long as we can. You mentioned it. In most high school teams, you take their best player off the field, and they look quite different. And we're in the same boat. So we don't sit around thinking about what it could have been if we had Alex, but I do feel like some things would have been a lot different offensively and defensively and as a whole team. But we've got the guys we got now, and we're going to go play Friday and again playing a really good Bethel Park team.
Yeah, they are the number 5 seed, but their 2 losses were very narrow. They were awfully close to actually being undefeated and maybe being, the 1 or 2 seed in this bracket. So it's not going to be an easy challenge against the Blackhawks. What do they do so well?
Everything. They extremely talented. They're big and tough and physical up front. The quarterback is probably as good as any in the WPIAL. Big, tall kid that throws it around. But he moves around well back there. For a 6'4" kid, he eludes the rush and extends plays pretty well too. The running back is explosive and tremendous football player. And number 1, they just got back a few weeks ago. He's an explosive kid that we certainly don't want to kick the ball to him. We want to try to keep the ball out of his hands as much as we can. But they're just a great football team.
I know, obviously, when you go against a team like this, they're going to be favored, but your team has some postseason experience and postseason success over the last couple of years. And you went against Aliquippa and nearly pulled off a stunner in that one last year. So how much can you lean upon the past experience the last couple of years of getting those postseason wins when it comes to playoffs this year?
We're going to stress that it depends on our preparation this week. And usually when we have a good week of preparation, we'll go out and perform well. So, our guys have been in this spot, like you said, and I don't think they'll be, it'll be too big for them. I do know that we'll come Friday and our kids will be prepared and they'll play extremely hard. And we're going to have to get some breaks and some things are going to have to go our way to be in a game with Bethel Park.
Lastly, I know that it's a big deal to make the postseason for Greater Latrobe, to now do so 3 consecutive years. And as we mentioned, moving up from 4A to 5A, which is so difficult to get back there. How has the community embraced this team?
I think our community's always been great to us since I've gotten here. And somebody told me, Mike Premka, that this is the first time in the history that Latrobe's qualified 3 years in a row. So that's an accomplishment, but we don't want to just make the playoffs, as you saw the last couple of years. We want to try to get a win or 2 and extend this season as long as we can. So our kids are excited and like I said, I think we'll go down there and play hard, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, hopefully that yields some postseason success. Ron, thanks so much for taking the time. As always, I appreciate it. And congrats on getting into the playoffs and hopefully beyond.
Thank you, Sean.
And as always, we appreciate Ron Prady taking the time and an assist to Tom Wilkins for getting that all squared away there. So he deserves a lot of credit. I know.
Hey, Tom was the one that taught me how to use the robotic tackling dummy.
Yeah. Oh, you had a blast with that.
Remember, he was trying to drive it up from the field to the field house, and he got stuck on the fence. And so
you put him up to that.
He's good for that. He's good for helping, Boomer get sound. So.
Yeah, good stuff from Ron Prady. Hopefully, by the way, we get to talk to these coaches again next week. It's going to kind of depend on how things play out. If our teams do well enough, we will have another episode next week, and we'll talk to the coaches that remain if there's a few of them. Well, let's now look at the Class 4A bracket. This is one that has gotten smaller. It's down to just 8 teams, and much like 6A, The 4A bracket will culminate at Norwin High School. The championship will be at 12:05 because why, Flick?
12:05 because of TV.
Because it's on TBS. Yes.
Oh, you're right. TBS. Sure.
Turner Broadcasting. Nonetheless, 12:05 November 16th. That is a Saturday at Norwin High School. The bracket looks like this. Number 1 seed Thomas Jefferson hosting West Allegheny Friday at 7. All these games Friday at 7 o'clock. This is unbelievable. Aliquippa, a number 4 seed. The Quips will be at home at their Heinz Field against number 5 Trinity. On the other side of the bracket, second seeded Montour at home against the number 7 seed Fighting Planets. And rounding out the bracket, third seeded McKeesport area welcomes Bell Vernon area, the number 6 seed on Friday, as the Leopards get in as a wild card team, and they get in as a wild card with the number 6 seed. So a little surprising that the Leopards fared so well in terms of the seeding, but I guess they do have the recent history of winning a couple state titles. So I know if you read stories about people that cover the entire WPIAL, this is a bracket that was very controversial. We don't need to get into all of that, but the reality is Bell Vernon getting a 6 seed, I think, is pretty fortuitous for the Leopards. I would say McKeesport's a great team, but they probably match up a heck of a lot better against them than they would against Thomas Jefferson, Montour, or Aliquippa. So I think Matt Humbert, you probably got the benefit of the doubt. You need to now take advantage of it. They should be pretty happy, I think. No, not anyone's, going to be thrilled to be playing McKeesport, but better than the alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a really tough matchup, but as you mentioned, a more favorable matchup than, the top couple of the other seeds. Obviously they try to avoid matching up, conference opponents. They wouldn't have faced Thomas Jefferson, but, Montour would have been a tough matchup. Obviously, Aliquippa would have been a very difficult matchup as well. So, yeah, it was kind of surprising. I read a few things as well, and there were some other media members that have been doing this longer than us, are surprised at how these seeds, kind of played out. But I guess at the end of the day, what cliche says, you got to beat whoever's, put in front of you. And so Bell Vernon's the number 6 seed, and we'll see what happens.
And I think one thing that's fascinating about this is you mentioned they avoid the rematch against Thomas Jefferson. That's how the committee always does it, pretty much. They don't want those first round, or in this case, it's a quarterfinals, but it's the opening round of that bracket. They don't want those rematches against the conference opponents. However, let's not forget, Bell Vernon played McKeesport this year. Now, that was non-conference. So just looking at it, they lost 28-7 against the Tigers. They also lost to Thomas Jefferson, a little bit more lopsided, 42-14. Who else were they supposed to play and only got about a quarter in? Aliquippa. So, I mean, you play so many different teams, you can't avoid, you can't base that on, we can't have a rematch whatsoever. You just try to split up the conference.
And I'm really interested too, Sean. These kids have played some really good opponents the last few years, but especially this year, with new starters and that type of thing. So I think they're playoff ready for Bell Vernon.
And what's a common thread in all of the postseason success over the past decade or so? Their head coach, Matt Humbert. We will hear from the head man, Matt Humbert, and then after a quick break, we'll come back and break down the 3A, 2A, and 1A playoffs with a ton more interviews to come. Now, it's Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Leopards. First off, Matt, getting into the postseason, I know is a big accomplishment. Your team has been there so many times over the years. So what does it mean to get back to the playoffs, especially now back in 4A?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be kind of slightly devastating if we didn't get in. And just for the simple fact that, we've never really been in a position that we haven't made postseason. So, we were fortunate enough to be able to get in, and we're appreciative of that. And, we're looking forward to, hopefully being able to right the ship and put a better foot forward into the postseason of our campaign.
Maybe you had to sweat it out a little bit on Saturday because your team did not clinch an automatic spot with that loss against Trinity. So it came down to a wild card, and there was just 2 wild cards available in 4A. It was a much smaller field than every other class except for 6A. So what was that like after the loss on Friday night until you found out on Saturday when the brackets came out?
Yeah, obviously a lot of uncertainty. And I think that, I tried to walk away from my phone for all of the different text messages and, calls I'm getting over it. And we still felt confident. We really did that we would get one of the one of the wild cards. But then at the same time, you truly don't know, and you never really know what the committee has on their mind or how they want to handle things. We're appreciative of that, though, and we're excited for the opportunity, especially for our upperclassmen and seniors. Because the idea of ending our season at Trinity, I think that was something that was kind of just like, a shell shock and a hard thing to kind of grasp, even though we've preached it for weeks, even though we really ramped it up our expiration date type of rhetoric, to be in that position. It's a lot of uncertainty, a little bit of stress as well.
Well, going back to that setback on Friday, you made the trek to Trinity and you fell by 10 points, 31-21. What did you take away from that game? What will you have to do better?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to do as a whole is we just need to play a little bit more from a collective standpoint. I think one thing that we pride ourselves on here is that team chemistry and that family-like mentality. And I think that maybe took a little bit of a hit on Friday. I'm optimistic that we can kind of gain that back. That synergy, I think, wasn't there for the most part with our football organization. And that's really on me, no one else. So I need to do a better job of fostering that. I think we need to play more as a team. I think we need to pick each other up when we kind of get down. And that's something that we'll emphasize for sure going into this week. But, we got to take advantage of opportunities. I mean, Trinity was able to be opportunistic, and they were able to take advantage of the opportunities presented at hand. And, we when we went up 21-14 in the third, we felt like we were in good setting, comfortable, and then they were able to come back and hit that trick play and tie it up on us. And that kind of took a little bit of wind out of the sails. So we just got to be a little bit more resilient, and we have to be a little bit more forceful on meaningful downs when we need it. We didn't complete 2 third and mediums, third and shorts, and that really kind of sealed the deal for us in the fourth quarter. So we need to get a little better at that, and we just need to clean up some basic stuff. And I think, the basic stuff that has kind of hurt us, I think we really need to, from a staff standpoint, need to emphasize and evaluate that a lot more. I mean, we need to, I don't want to say big basic, but we need to really hone in on the different things that have got us to the point that we need to be in the postseason. And, that's on us as coaches. We need to make sure that we're putting the kids in the best possible situation. And, we're just excited for that opportunity.
You mentioned the word uncertainty when it came to this bracket. I know it has received some criticism. So I'm sure you were focused primarily on your team getting in and then seeing who you would match up against. So you get the 6th seed against number 3 McKeesport. But it seemed like first and foremost, your conference got a lot of respect with TJ getting the 1 seed, Trinity 5 and U6. How did you evaluate the bracket as a whole? How did it align with your expectations after everything played out Friday night?
Listen, I'm like not the average person when it comes to this. I really don't pay attention to it. I don't care where they put us. In this certain situation in this year for the 2024 campaign, I'm just excited and happy that we were in. And I know that was a big topic of conversation. And, if you would follow my coaches and the napkins and the paper plates with the different brackets on them and everybody kind of scrambling to try to figure out who's where, I just never really engage in it. I mean, whoever they give you, and you kind of go from there. I've been in positions where we've had extreme success in the regular season and we still didn't get the 1st seed. So it's kind of one of those things. It's very subjective. I don't know. I don't know. The committee might have just tried to avoid certain matchups and maybe they started from backward moving forward. I don't know. And to me, it doesn't really matter. And we don't talk about that with the kids yesterday. Like, it didn't matter. I mean, we're just in and we're ready to play. I mean, if anything, I think we're more excited that we only have to travel, 20 minutes to McKeesport opposed to, an hour and 15 minutes to Aliquippa or somewhere else like that. So we benefited from a regional standpoint. But again, can't overstate it. We're just excited and, we just try not to focus on what the committee or what the perspective of the outside looks at it is. We're just ready to go and we're ready to get a good week of practicing.
It is a short trip. It's also a familiar one to McKeesport. You played there earlier this season against the Tigers. You've been in a conference with them so many times over the years. So you know what to expect. I would imagine your players at this point know what to expect. But what challenges do the Tigers present to you?
Well, they always present a handful. I think every time you talk McKeesport football, you always gravitate towards our offense and what they do. So, the triple option and how they scheme and how they run it is always a big point of emphasis. I mean, it's something that you practice for in the summer months. It's not something you just practice for, for 4 days and say, all right, let's go play them. So I think that's obviously a big challenge. They've been able to roll the past 3 games. They've been doing really well. Their defense always poses a challenge. I mean, what they do defensively, they're very aggressive. They bring a lot of pressure. So that's a challenge as well. And then not to mention, the past 3 games, they showed a different defense. So, we'll be kind of playing a guessing game, and we'll have to double prep for what they do defensively, if it's their base odd man front or their even man front that they've shown over the past 3 weeks. So that's a challenge right there, just the multiplicity of what they've shown throughout this season. And then, when you kind of mix in what they do offensively, but again, I kind of said the same thing about the Trinity game. I'd like to think that we're in a different standpoint right now. I mean, if you look at where kids are aligned and our personnel and everything, from week 3, week 2, week 1 to now, it's completely different. And I said that last week against Trinity, and it didn't really work out in our favor, but I still think that, Trinity is a really good football team, but I think we're a really good football team as well. And I just think that, games like that, especially with Trinity, come down to a few plays here and there. And, they were able to make a few more than we did. And we're not going to sit and whine about it. We just correct it from the film, correct it from the practice, and we move forward. But, their multiplicity on defense, especially over the past 3 weeks, and what they do offensively, that poses a big challenge. But like I said, however, I'd like to think that we're a little different at this point in juncture, and I'm excited for that match. I think we all kind of were looking forward to, and it goes back to your original question for Keysport. We felt like, that we definitely didn't deserve to win that football game that first time around, but we felt like we did some uncharacteristic things that were very basic corrections. So we're hoping that, we get a second opportunity here. And, I can't put the cart before the horse, but I think we're very optimistic and we're very excited about that second opportunity to go out to prove to ourselves, that was a contest that, like I said, we didn't necessarily deserve to win, but we surely were a little better than what we showed. So it's a big challenge for us to kind of redeem that first loss and do everything we can to keep this season going.
Matt, thanks so much for doing this. Congrats on making the postseason, and hopefully you can string together another long postseason run here in 2024.
No doubt, guys. That's what we're gunning for.
That is Matt Humbert, the head coach of Bell Vernon area.
Along the arc of a woman's life, there are many passages. Growing up, chasing dreams, building a career, embracing wisdom born of experience. There are times that make good health and well-being so vital. We provide care that helps women thrive at any age, at any stage. Independence Health System. Expert care here.
Coming winter 2024, DBAT Pittsburgh East will be bringing the DBAT Sports family to Pittsburgh's East neighborhoods, featuring a 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art baseball and softball training facility with 4 dual Fungoman automatic pitching machines, 9 lesson cages featuring the best training tech in the game, including pro-sized baseball and fast-pitch bullpens, elite speed, strength, and agility coaching, professional baseball and softball instruction, 50-plus camps, clinics, party room, and a pro shop powered by pro preferred brands Rawlings and Easton. Now offering Founders Club memberships. Learn more at dbatpiteast.com.
Welcome back as we continue this special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We've already heard from 4 coaches. Let's get to several more now in the Class 3A bracket. Flick, we mentioned, much like 5A, we were really following this classification all season long because of the interstate. And fortunately enough, 3 of our Westmoreland County teams did make the cut. The top seed earning a bye, Amani Christian Academy. They are number 1. They will play the winner of number 8 Southmoreland, hosting number 9 Highland. All of the first round games will take place Friday at 7 p.m. So the Scotties against the Golden Rams. The number 4 seed also earning a bye, the Beaver Bobcats. They will await the winner of 5th seeded Avonworth hosting number 12 Greensburg Salem. On the other side of the bracket, Central Valley gets the number 2 seed and the consequential bye that comes with it. Freeport area, the number 7 seed hosts number 10 Mount Pleasant area. The winner of that matchup will go against the Warriors. Also on that side of the bracket, Elizabeth Forward earns the number 3 spot, and the Warriors get a bye. They will face either number 6 Deer Lakes or number 11 North Catholic. So 4 byes in this bracket. The Westmoreland County teams all kind of in the same general area. 8 seed, 10 seed, 12 seed. They all come from the same conference. it turned out to be kind of a jumbled mess after Elizabeth Forward. Southmoreland, Mount Pleasant, Greensburg, Salem. I don't know when it's all said and done that there was much separation. Technically, Greensburg, Salem was the wild card representative, but especially how the teams finished up the season, I would say all three teams pretty even. And so it wasn't all that easy to kind of differentiate how they might be seated.
Yeah, put all three of those teams in a hat, shake them up, and pick out the first one. And I don't think anybody could argue with whoever really you'd kind of pick out there, and in terms of how they would fare, in the playoffs and against each other. I mean, look, Greensburg Salem just got the big win over Southmoreland to end the year. So again, it was really intriguing. We kind of thought Elizabeth Forward was maybe a cut above the other teams. I think they showed that against Southmoreland in the regular season, but we didn't know how the other seeding was going to go from the Interstate Conference. And again, a lot of Westmoreland County teams in it. So it was really intriguing, exciting to kind of see. I mean, we covered it all year, really. I mean, we did a ton of games from the Interstate Conference. Obviously, we do many of the dairy games, and then, Greensburg, Salem, Mount Pleasant, Greensburg, Salem, Southmoreland, Elizabeth Forward, Southmoreland. So it was pretty cool to follow this all year, and we'll look forward to do it again next year. And we'll see how the teams do in the playoffs.
And all three of those teams, Golden Lions, Scotties, and Vikings, finished 3-2 in the conference. They all beat each other. So it was basically, kind of a dead even draw. The difference with the tiebreaker is that the Vikings and Scotties got in. And I think that actually kind of impacted how they were seated. And then, as we mentioned, Greensburg Salem was the wild card. So they get the 12th and final spot in this bracket. But Greensburg Salem and Southmoreland each went 7-3. Mount Pleasant area went just 5-5 overall. Although, again, we're getting too deep in the weeds, but week 0 games don't count towards that. So whatever happened there, you kind of throw that out. Nonetheless, we got 3 coaches to talk to. Let's start with the coach that has the best seed, the most favorable seed. That is Tim Bukowski of Southmoreland. His number 8 Scotties looking for their first ever postseason victory against number 9 Highlands. Here's Tim Bukowski. First off, Tim, it's kind of becoming the norm now for the Scotties to get to the postseason. I know you and the community does not take it for granted, however. So what does it mean to accomplish this once again?
Yeah, very exciting time. We want to be a part of the WPIAL postseason, and we've done it again. So it has become the norm and the expectation. So, of course, we're still looking for that all elusive win, but it's good to be a part of the tournament.
And you had a good regular season, to say the least. 7 wins. However, you did lose your final 2 games. How did you evaluate kind of the ups and downs of the regular season and where your team is at right now?
Yeah, I thought, overall, if you look at the big picture, it's a nice season. 7-3, is a good record. The ending, we felt like, possibly we didn't play our best couple of games, but also Greensburg and Elizabeth played well. And, the last game, we were a little shorthanded, and we just didn't have enough to get the win. But I thought we still competed, even after losing the conference to Elizabeth. I felt like we could have let down more, but I thought our guys played hard. We were just a little bit shorthanded Friday.
Well, to that point, football at every level, it's a little bit about attrition. Certainly, once you get to the end of the season and into the postseason, no team is going to be completely healthy, but it seems like your team in particular kind of fighting an uphill battle with what happened on Friday. So moving parts, how do you kind of manage knowing that you might not have every guy available that you'd hope to have?
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's the timing of the injuries. You'd rather have them early on and have everybody healthy for the playoffs. We won't make any excuses. We're going to show up Friday. We just really don't know at this point who we're going to have. We have a couple of guys out. Our 2 leading tacklers, our middle linebackers, have been out with mononucleosis. So who thinks mono is going to hit your locker room? But it did. And, those guys we should know about, Dawson Wolf possibly today. And Ethan Shawley, if he does play, his test won't be until Friday. So it would be like a game time decision. And it's all, whatever the doctors say. We have no say so. If they're cleared and they're able to play, then they will. As far as the Friday injuries, those guys are all getting tests. Some are actually at the doctors as we speak. So we really don't have any answers, but potentially up to 6 guys not playing. And, 2 of them are quarterbacks.
Not easy to overcome that. So you get into the postseason with the win, you would have clinched it, right there. You had to kind of go to the tiebreaker a little bit. The fact that you lost a close game actually helped your cause. You fell 28-21, so it was a 7-point loss. Were you aware of the significance of the late touchdown that your team scored that got you one of those automatic spots?
Believe it or not, I was aware of it before the game. I knew the 9 points differential that they had to win by to knock us down. But as the game was going on, there was so much confusion with the injuries. And I honestly didn't even think of it at the time until after the game when somebody mentioned it. So, yeah, thankfully, I guess we only lost by 7. Yeah, I was aware heading in, but not at the moment.
Well, certainly based on the seeding, I think you would have been in the postseason no matter what happened. You get the number 8 seed, which means you are now a home team against number 9 Highlands. So how did that seeding align with your expectations?
Yeah, Sean, it fell right where we thought. We're happy to have a home game, especially because our last 3 games were on the road. So we had homecoming and senior night so early in the season that this is the first time we'll be home in 4 weeks. So, I'm excited for the guys to get to play another game at home, especially the seniors. And, it's a reward for a solid season. And, yeah, we're definitely excited. And, playing Highlands, a team that we scrimmaged the first scrimmage of the season, we felt that we played them pretty even at that point. So hopefully, we'll come out ready to play.
Highlands, I think, is a fascinating team because they went toe-to-toe with Amani Christian, which really no one else can say. But they also dropped a few other games that maybe were a little surprising after that. So they have some really good wins. They have even a really good loss, all things considered. But are they maybe a little bit uneven? And how do you evaluate how their season has gone?
Yeah, it's a little tricky with the Freeport loss in the middle there where, they got beat. They beat Elizabeth Forward in a couple of overtimes, our conference champ. And like you said, they played Amani tougher than anybody else. So actually missed a field goal to win the game, 27-yard field goal. So, just based on watching the film and our scrimmage with them, they're very athletic. This quarterback, Minaj Lucas, is a phenomenal athlete. He runs the read as good as anybody I've seen in the last decade. I mean, he is really good at hanging on to that football, riding that running back into the line, and he pulls it at the last second. So if your defense isn't, where they're supposed to be, he's going to make you pay. And when he makes you pay, he takes it all the way to the house. So he's a huge challenge. I know they have a veteran secondary. All their guys were back from last year. I remember talking to Matt, their coach. He felt early in the season that was, he was going to lean on his secondary. So, yeah, very athletic team. I think physically we match up with them on the lines. I just think we have to really play disciplined football on the defensive side to control him.
Lastly, I'm sure everyone is aware at this point, Southmoreland has not won a postseason game. It would be historic to get a victory on Friday. Is that good pressure? Is that sometimes a little overwhelming to hear that? How do you and the entire program kind of approach that?
Yeah, I think that since, the last few years being there, I think a little bit of that has worn off, the pressure. I think we're more relaxed with it. I think the big thing right now is really just hopefully getting healthy enough to have the weapons to compete. Our leading receiver, Elliott, hurt his shoulder. We need all our guys to be there to really have a better chance to win. I think it's a good matchup if we're able to put most of our guys on the field.
Well, Tim, certainly we hope that you're able to get healthy and have success on Friday. Congrats once again for making the postseason as well.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. And appreciate all the coverage.
And we appreciate the head man for the Scotties taking the time. Again, he doesn't know. Obviously, we don't know either the status of a lot of those guys. It truly feels like he might not know until Friday afternoon who he's going to have. So some of those injuries you can work around. Other ones could be really detrimental. It's going to be tough for them. We want so badly for them to win a playoff game. Full strength, I like their odds against Highlands, but to your point, Flick, if they have guys, even if they play, if they're at 75%, he's going to have to really come up with a great game plan. I think he knows he has his hands full with a pretty good Highlands team.
Yeah, the not practice all week for some of those guys. Again, I don't know the the ins and outs, the specifics and that type of thing, but it is really hard to kind of bring everybody together. If it happens, obviously it'd be monumental for many reasons, but for that reason as well.
The other Westmoreland County coach that will be looking for a playoff, well, there's a couple in this bracket. Another one is Jason Fazikis of Mount Pleasant area. He's going against a familiar opponent. They've played Freeport quite a bit in recent years, and I think they're going to have a chance at, to win this game against the Yellow Jackets. Freeport's a good team. Mount Pleasant has typically been in the playoffs, so this is not new. One question I have is, will Cole Chatfield be available? If he is, what is he able to do after missing some time? If not, I know that they did pretty well offensively against Elizabeth Ford, but can they do that 2 weeks in a row? So that's going to be a big, big question. One thing we know we can count on, they can run the football, and they've got plenty of guys who can do that. I think they'll have to be really good up front and probably really good defensively against the Yellow Jackets. We'll dive a little bit further into that as I now talk to Jason Fazikis, the head man for Mount Pleasant. First off, Jason, I know that you do not take for granted the significance of making the postseason. Kind of came down to the wire for your team and really pretty much everyone in this Class 3A Interstate Conference for the final week to get in. But what was, I guess, the message to the team after you found out you were in the postseason?
Well, you're right. We never take it for granted. I mean, it's certainly where we want to be at the end of the season. We always want to be in that conversation for one of those spots, and it's a really big accomplishment to make it in. So, not much of a message to the kids so far, just to let them know what we're playing, that the plan is going to be the same as usual with our routine. So we'll get in with them tomorrow and kind of get the week started with the kids.
You had to change the plan a little bit on Friday against Elizabeth Forward. You were without Cole Chatfield, your quarterback. But it seemed like you played very competitive for the majority of that game, and then EF kind of pulled away late for a 30-point win. That was probably a little misleading. So what did you like from what you saw against the Warriors?
Well, whenever you're down a starter, any starter, sometimes that makes it just a little bit more difficult, especially when you got a kid like Cole that's out. So, what I've liked about this team from the beginning of the year up until the end of that game on Friday, their effort is really outstanding, and I always say that when you don't have to coach effort, it makes it easier, So we just ran into a really good team, and we were hanging in there. Kids were doing the best they could till it got away from us a little bit there, in the second half. So proud of the way the kids responded there after a couple of weeks ago and everything, when we lost to the rival and all that. So just really feel good about how hard they try and their the effort level.
Well, one thing about your team is obviously you would love to have Cole Chatfield back there because he's very accomplished and certainly a leader for this team, but you have plenty of options to run the football even with him out. Guys like Hutter and Eicher and Jarrett Garn has been outstanding this season. So is it just a little bit more for each of those guys to potentially do individually?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what you always have to do. I mean, everyone has to really step up and, elevate their role. And one thing that goes overlooked too is I thought our offensive line did a really good job of setting the pass protection there on Friday as well. And then when you have a kid like Garney, I think he's really coming into his own as being a playmaker right now. So he's always going to be a big part of the plan.
5-5 during the regular season, but it felt like just about every single game came down to the wire. You played in so many close games. Is that something that the players have embraced, knowing that they've been in close games, so it's not going to be uncharted territory if it happens again now in the postseason?
Well, yeah, I would think so, because those games are really, it's just really competitive, and like they're hard right up until the end. So I think that you absolutely have to be able to take some value from that and takeaway when you have those tight games. And we had quite a few of them. We came out on top of a couple of them we were on the other side of it. So I definitely think it was part of the learning process this season.
As I mentioned at the onset, you're the number 10 seed. It was really fascinating to see how the brackets played out this year with the wild cards being chosen by the committee. And then your conference in particular, outside of Elizabeth Forward, it was kind of a jumbled mess for the teams that got in. Greensburg-Salem ultimately qualified as a wild card out of your conference. So how did the 10 seeds stack up, and how did you evaluate the bracket as a whole?
Well, honestly, I'd be honest, I'm not one of the guys that really get into all the bracket stuff. I got some guys on staff that really like to do that. I just like to listen to what they say, but in the end, how they seed us and how they put you in, that's how it's going to be. So we're just happy to be in, and we're just focused on this Freeport team. So that's kind of been the plan since Friday.
And the Yellow Jackets, I mean, they're a good team, Freeport is, and you're fairly familiar with them. I know you said you've gone against them quite a bit in recent years. So what do you expect from Freeport?
And again, knowing from playing them so much, they got a good staff up there. Those guys do a good job. Like, their kids, I know they're going to play hard. Their kids are going to play fast. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to do what they're coached to do, So I could tell you that before I even put the tape on this morning. You know what I mean? So we expect to have a really good team that's going to be ready to play on Friday.
It's kind of interesting. They wrap up their regular season against Amani Christian, which was the conference winner and the number 1 seed. You wrap up the regular season against your conference winner, the number 3 seed EF. Does playing a great team one week sometimes tend to carry over to the next week?
Well, boy, I hope so, especially this week. I hope that carries over a little bit. Like you said, you always want to win those games, but like you're going to carry something away with your effort and maybe some of the points of the game where we're doing pretty well. So, yeah, I like to think that you can kind of get some momentum going off of that. Then you throw in the excitement in the playoffs. I think it puts you in a pretty good spot.
You've gotten this program to the point where pretty much every year the Vikings are in the playoffs. So you personally know what to expect, even though it might be new for some of your players. They've been there for many of them as well. So what is key about having postseason success this year?
Getting in is one thing, man. Boy, you always want to try to get some wins and get on a run here. So, it's going to mean a lot if we can have a great week of practice. We can go out and execute what we want to do, really well on Friday. So I'm just looking forward to the chance that that we're going to be able to play a great game, take care of ourselves like we always try to do, and see if we can get some plays when we need them.
Well, Jason, we are looking forward to it as well on Friday night. Should be a great one. Thanks so much for taking the time, as always, to do this.
Yeah, sure thing, Sean. I appreciate it. Thanks.
We appreciate Jason Fazekas, the head coach for Mount Pleasant area, taking the time to join us in what is a very fascinating 3A bracket for us here in Westmoreland County.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And hey, Sean, we're going to be broadcasting the game on Friday night. It's going to be an audio-only broadcast. You can listen for free. There's a lot of ins and outs and things going on behind the scenes and everything with how games are being broadcast now for the WPIAL playoffs. But we will be there, John Flickinger, and actually, I believe Joe Mylance will be doing color for that game, who is an assistant coach at Derry. He knows all about Mount Pleasant, and of course, they played Freeport this year too. So we thought that he'd be great with John to do the game. So you can listen for free, Mount Pleasant and Freeport on Friday night.
Well, we have one more coach remaining from Westmoreland County in this bracket, and that is the second-year man, Ty George of Greensburg-Salem. I talked to him about the matchup against Avonworth as they try to knock off the 5th-seeded Antelopes, which, by the way, they know about deep postseason runs. That's a team that's been playing down at Acrisure or even Heinz Field. You go back a few years, the last few years. They are looking to get over the hump. Greensburg-Salem will have its hands full, but it's been a great season so far for the Golden Lions. We'll see if they can keep it up. Here now, my interview with Ty George. First off, Ty, I know that's a big accomplishment. 1, to get to the postseason, but 2, to do it with 7 wins on the campaign. So what really stands out about your team's performance so far this year?
It comes back to the kids and just the effort and time and work that they've put in now for, week after week, month after month. They've consistently bought into our program in the offseason. They carried it into the season itself. And then, we were able to have some success early and gave us some confidence. And, we had some moments of, resiliency and some moments where we had some adversity that we had to overcome. And, I'm just so proud of their consistent effort and how they've battled and responded to all the challenges we've faced. So it's a credit to our kids and the work and time and effort that they've put in.
Even though you got 7 wins, it still came down to the regular season finale. And then even then, the committee choosing you as a wild card just based on tiebreakers and things like that. So what was your mindset? What were the players' mindsets heading into that final game? And then even afterwards, knowing you had won, but hadn't been guaranteed a spot.
Yeah, it's crazy that, with the new format this year, you kind of leave some things up to chance. You're hoping the committee allows you to get in and play. And, we kind of knew going into it, we put ourselves in a tough spot if we don't win the game. And I think the kids, since that, I think they knew, it was our senior night, last game at Offutt. And I think all those things combined together really, contributed to their mentality and their approach whenever they were, competing and playing. And then, we got the win and we were fortunate enough to come out victorious. And at that point, you look and you're still fourth in the conference and you're still needing help from the committee to get in. But, we felt like we had done everything we could. We felt like, we put ourselves in the best position possible and finished out strong and, just hoping things would fall in our favor. And luckily enough for us, they did.
What did you like most about the game against the Scotties?
I'll tell you what, it was a great football game. It was a great football game then at the end of the year. It was close at the half, and then we were able, Peyton Chismore was able to get an interception, return it for a touchdown, and we had some momentum, and then they responded with the score, and it was just kind of this back and forth the entire game. And, we were tested at different points at different moments, and for us to just still find a way to win and to come out victorious, I'm proud of our kids and how they responded, even like I said, when we had some adversity, and there was a lot of close moments in the game. So it was a big win for us.
So you get into the postseason as the number 12 seed, meaning you go against 5th seeded Avonworth. How did getting the 12 seed and matching up with Avonworth align with the expectations maybe you had?
Avonworth's obviously a very good football team. We've been watching them on film. They play in a tough conference, and they're obviously a staple of consistency. In the WPIAL, and they've had a ton of success within their program. And for us, I think it's great to go against a school and a team in a different conference. Obviously, a lot of our games this year have been local, which has been great. But to get to play against a team and of that caliber in a different conference, I think it'll be a good test for us and a good measuring stick, not just for our season this year, but for years to come. And I think we'll get a great experience regardless.
They've been in the championship game recently, the last couple of years. Does that show up on film at all? Do you see a team that's kind of been there and knows what to expect in the postseason, whereas your players, quite frankly, this is kind of new territory?
Yeah, absolutely. Avonworth, they've like I said, they've been there, they've done that. This for us is kind of uncharted waters. We haven't been, to the playoffs in a while. So I think there'll be some newness for our guys. And again, on film, you can see that their guys have confidence in what they do, and they're used to making runs in the postseason like this. So it's nothing new for them. But I like where we're at as a program. I think we're coming into playoffs, having won a couple games in a row with some confidence. So I think it puts us in a good position to compete.
How do you as a coach try to balance the excitement for your players, maybe the anxiousness and nerves, while also wanting to make sure that they bring their best and they are kind of, amped up for the game?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something where you come off a big win and then you get into the playoffs. There's a lot of excitement, and the kids should definitely celebrate that, and they should definitely be proud of what they've accomplished and what they've done throughout the year. And I think we've kind of had the weekend to do that, and now it's back Monday here. It's back to the work week. So I think now with us returning, we'll go to our routine, go to our schedule of how we go about our weekly prep and game plan and things of that nature. And I think now that we're back in our regular routine and we kind of know what's ahead of us, we can get back to work. So it's a healthy balance on that schedule and that routine. I think will go a long way.
Lastly, Ty, I know this has been a tough season because, of course, Rich Bowen passed away about a month ago at this point. It certainly seems as though that has been in the forefront of your mind and the players' mind and the entire Golden Lions community. So what does it mean to kind of go on this run while still remembering him throughout a very challenging season?
Yeah, it's super special, especially with where we're at in the program right now. I can honestly tell you that we would not be in the position we are if it wasn't for Rich Bowen. And I know he's played a huge role in getting us up to this point, and just his coaching last year and even into this year, and just, a stable presence he's been for not just the players, but for myself too. And, I think I'm glad we've been able to hopefully he's meant to the program and the kids and myself. It's been just great to have him, get to see us at this point in the program. I know he would be proud of where we're at and what we've accomplished. So I hope we can continue to do him proud going forward.
You should be very proud as well. Congrats on the 7 wins. Congrats on getting to the postseason. Good luck going forward.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
It's Ty George, the head coach of Greensburg-Salem. We continue here. We thank Ty George so much, as well as all of the other coaches that we have had a chance to talk to so far. There's still a couple more to come, but before we get to the 1A bracket, we'll run down 2A. Now, regretfully, no Westmoreland County teams made the cut. off the top of my head, Ligonier Valley is actually the only team in Westmoreland County that is in 2A. So we only had one opportunity, and unfortunately the Rams were not able to keep their season going. Top seeded and earning a bye, Seton LaSalle. The number 1 seed Rebels will face the winner of number 8 Our Lady of the Sacred Heart and number 9 Riverside. That a matchup Friday at 7. Of course, all of these first-round games will take place Friday at 7. Same side of the bracket, number 4 Steel Valley hosts number 13 Washington, and number 5 Western Beaver welcomes number 12 Carlington. Great story for Carlington being in the postseason. Other side of the bracket, South Park gets the number 2 seed, and the Eagles will await the winner. They'll be in the quarterfinals against either number 7 Mohawk or number 10 Keystone Oaks. That at Mohawk on Friday. Elwood City gets a bye as well as the number 3 seed, and the Wolverines will face either number 6 South Allegheny or number 11 Waynesburg Central. That matchup takes place at South Allegheny. The championship will be Saturday, November 23rd at Acrisure Stadium. That will be the 2 p.m. game. I should note the 3A bracket will also be that same day, but will be the 5 o'clock game. And for those wondering, yes, sometimes we have the championships on Fridays. This time it will be Saturday championships down at Acrisure Stadium. So that wraps up the Class 2A bracket. Let's now take a look at the 1A bracket, and we have 3 Westmoreland County teams and a couple of coaches that we will get to in just a moment. 1A begins with the number 1 seed, Fort Cherry Rangers. Maybe a little controversy behind that. They get the number 1 spot instead of Clairton, and as a result, they host number 16 Brentwood Friday at 7 p.m. That's the case for all of these games. Number 8 Leechburg hosts number 9 Cornell, so the winner of that one will face either Fort Cherry or Brentwood. The first Westmoreland County matchup in this bracket features Jeanette, the number 13 seed, traveling to play number 4 Neshannock. And it could be a terrific rematch potentially, depending on what happens, because the winner of that contest will play either number 5 Greensburg Central Catholic or number 12 Monessen. That is a home game at Greensburg Central Catholic High School, which is very significant because the last few years the Centurions have not been able to play on their home field in the postseason. On the other side of the bracket, number 2 Clairton against number 15 Rochester. The Bears have been so dominant all season. Number 7 Laurel hosts number 10 California. Bishop Canevin, the number 3 seed, welcomes 14-seeded Bentworth. And number 6 Jefferson Morgan hosting Southside Beaver, the number 11 seed. It is a full bracket, 16 teams, so 1 plays 16. Very easy to figure out. There are no buys in this one. So just quickly, we have all 3 of the Westmoreland County teams, including Monessen, all on that same quadrant of the bracket. We're hoping that it's going to be a Westmoreland County matchup in the quarterfinals. Jeanette will have a tall task, certainly, to try to win at Neshannock. But how about GCC? If you would have told me before the season or a month into the season that the Centurions would be the best seeded team in all of Westmoreland County in the playoffs, I'd be shocked. But they get the number 5 seed. And again, I think that the way they finished the season, knocking off Leechburg, really opened some eyes.
I think that's what did it. And, they had a convincing win over Jeanette as well, which, kind of played a role into it, I think, too. And, no offense to Monessen. I mean, obviously, we'd love to see GCC Jeanette in that quarterfinal round just for nostalgia purposes. But, man, it's going to be such a hard challenge for Jeanette going up against Neshannock. But, hey, if they can hit some big plays, can stay in it, believe, and, maybe we can see that rivalry matchup. But I think GCC Monessen is certainly going to be really intriguing. Maybe a lot of touchdowns, Sean, will be scored in that game. Then again, GCC's defense coming off of a good game against Leechburg. So we'll see. Yeah,
Tyvon Kershaw is a difference maker for the Greyhounds. He's done some big, big things, although they have sputtered a little bit playing some of the better teams in their conference as of late. But one person who does not take them lightly is John Thompson, the head coach of Greensburg Central Catholic. Let's hear now from him on the home matchup against the Greyhounds. First off, JT, congrats on another great regular season. I would imagine the win against Leechburg really has to be a high watermark. That's a big-time win. It gets you second place out of the conference. What was the significance of getting that victory on Friday?
It was awesome. It was an awesome game. Quality win, great win for not only our team, but as a program as a whole in the school. I mean, they're coming into it. Leechburg is 8-1. mean, having a great year, very similar to us. And unfortunately, the week before Fraser canceled on us, and Springdale before that, and so we were getting better. We had momentum going into that Fraser game, and then have the game canceled. It's like, okay, so we quickly had to just adjust and make it into a mini bye week, and gave us a little bit of time to get some kids healed up and rest, and also kind of breathe a little bit and regroup and get a little bit. We had probably a day head start for Leechburg, who is a like I said, well coached, very good football team. And going into it, we knew we were going to have our hands full, and having the week off, we were very concerned. All right, how are we going to come out? And came out a little rusty, but at the end of the day, man, kids played hard. They played awesome, and persevered through some adversity during the game. But kids played great.
Well, they very similar to your team in that there's a star quarterback that they have in Jaden Floyd. And the fact that you held them to just 2 touchdowns, he's been scoring 5 touchdowns himself in a lot of games. What stood out about the defensive effort against a pretty special player on the other side?
We didn't want to give up the big play. I think we gave up 1 pass, big play, and try to keep 7 contained and 88. I mean, they're good football players. Floyd is an outstanding football player. But not give up the big plays, play with discipline, play, within the scheme. And we were able to do that. The kids really, bought into that and the effort that they gave. And going into it, we knew we had to stop the run, and we did a pretty good job of that. And, a lot of kids have stepped up in their roles, defensively to, get us to where we are right now and playing really good, solid defense.
When you think back to the loss against Clairton, it feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but I'm sure it had to be a little deflating to really get nothing going offensively. Now we see they've done that to everyone all season long. How has your team gotten better since that point? And were they able to kind of get over that mental hurdle pretty quickly after that one?
Yeah, no question. We moved right on. They're on defensively. Clairton, I mean, I've never seen, they were fast. They were fast, physical defense, and they got their nose guard who just, watching them on film, breaking down our opponents and seeing them, who was just tearing up the league, with that perspective, I mean, at the same time, it was 14-0 at halftime, and it probably should have been 7-0. And I think we talked about it before, and we had some, I lost 3 starters at halftime, and defensively, we had to kind of draw something up on a board and be like, all right, this is who we have, and let's get ready to go, guys. And had some freshmen and sophomores out there playing. It's no excuse, we finished the game, but it was great for those kids to get some real game experience, help them gain confidence. And you got to look at the silver lining out of the whole thing. I mean, we got beat, we got shut out, but we knew we were better than that. And then we were able to prove that, and keep, confidence going throughout the season, but, week after week after week after that. And we got better every week, and kids embraced their roles. We had guys step up. Jackson McMullen was like a tight end, wide receiver for us, finally found a role and has become a primary target for Samir, as well as Landon Honick on the outside, Jerry Davis, and then running the football. It's kind of been running back by committee, but we've had some, kids, Luke Samelka, again, Tucker Lloyd, Blaze Bugash, a freshman. We've got freshmen stepping up. So those kids are gaining that confidence and knowing that they can, even these freshmen and sophomores, play at the varsity level and do it pretty well.
Going into the final week of the regular season, only 3 Westmoreland County teams had already clinched. It seems like, for whatever reason, maybe with the change in the format, so many teams had to wait until the final week to actually officially get in. You were one of the few teams that clinched. So did that take any pressure off heading into the end of the season? And then after that victory against Leechburg, did you have any anticipation of where you might ultimately end up in the bracket?
Yeah, I had no idea. I don't even know how it works. The rules and point systems and all that stuff. I had no clue. As far as clinching, I didn't let that happen. As far as, all right, hey, we can relax, we can breathe. We've already clinched a playoff spot. Let's get through Leechburg and then see where we land. We didn't take that approach. We took that approach of, all right, we want to show we're one of the best teams in our league against one of the best teams, and we have to go out there and win this game. Our expectations are every time we step on the field is to win a game. And then on top of that, put ourselves in position for a top seed, potential home game, which we got with that win. So, the kids embraced that as well, that goal that we had set for our week. And we attacked it. The kids attacked it, and we're able to come out with a great victory on Friday.
So you go against the number 12 seed Monessen Greyhounds. They lost a tough one to wrap up their season, but they certainly put a lot of people on notice early in the campaign. Tyvon Kershaw has had a terrific season. What stands out about Monessen when you watch them?
Their skill, that they're running back. Tyvon he's can tell I've heard about him all season. Even though we didn't play against them, but he got a lot of publicity, and it's well deserved. I mean, they have some skill, they have some speed on their offense, and defensively they attack. Man, they like to bring pressure. So we're gonna have our hands full as well, and our work cut out for us. We got to have a great week of practice and preparing. They do a couple, some things a little bit differently that we haven't seen all year. So it's they're in the playoffs and for a reason, and they've had a really good year. So we've got to bring our A game.
Well, GCC has been getting into the postseason recently, but this year feels a little different because you won't be playing at Hempfield area. You won't be playing at Plum. You'll be on your home field at Greensburg Central Catholic. I know that's got to be an awesome feeling. So what went into that, and how much does that maybe help everybody in that community?
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. I'm really excited about it for our kids, for our school, like I said, for our program, but like I said, for our school. And for one reason or another, yeah, they've had it. Like I said, you said at Hempfield, last year was at Plum, and I got it. The credit goes to our athletic director Dan Mahoney. I mean, he's worked hard at that. This week, we didn't. Again, it was all based off what was going to happen last Friday versus Leechburg, but planted the seed and reached out to the WPIAL and came through once all the stadiums were all said and done, and they called it at our place. Man, I'm pumped, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for our kids and playing on our home field and our community, the students. Hopefully we pack the house and get everybody out there, man. We're really pumped for it.
Well, we are excited for it as well. Congrats on the great regular season and for the postseason appearance. Good luck going forward in the playoffs.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And we appreciate JT for taking the time to talk about GCC. Just so thrilled to be playing a home game. I know he could not be more excited about that. Now, it's just his second year, so he wasn't around when they had to play at Hempfield area a couple years ago. But last year, they played their home playoff game at Plum, which is just, that made no sense.
No.
So they had to kind of, I don't want to say pull some strings, but they had to make an effort to make sure that they got this home game. And so congrats to them. It's a really cool opportunity for them. And I'm sure they want to make the most of it and make sure that becomes a regular thing going forward. So they will have a tough matchup. And certainly for Jeanette, it will not be easy. But the fact that the Jayhawks got into the playoffs, they took care of business on Saturday. They made the committee wait a little bit longer, but it was worth the wait. Jeanette gets in. Not only do they get in, Brentwood gets in as well. So they take 5 teams from the Class 1A Eastern Conference. I think the committee really respected how good that conference was when you look at Clareton 2, GCC 5, Leechburg 8, Jeanette 13, Brentwood 16. So they didn't have to take that many teams, but obviously they feel like it was a pretty good conference. So Jeanette is battle tested, but they will have another stiff test on Friday as they make the trek up to Lawrence County. Maybe see our pal James Dotson up there along the way as they will go against the Lancers. I had a chance to talk to Jeanette's head coach, Thomas Pallone, about the matchup here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Thomas, it was a little interesting that your team was playing as they were basically putting the brackets together. They had to kind of wait a little bit to put 1A out to see how your team fared against Riverview. Was it a little stressful, a little weird playing on Saturday, knowing that every other team pretty much knew their playoff fate after the brackets came out in the other classifications earlier?
Yeah, definitely. I found out I wasn't even back to the locker room yet after the victory of Riverview. So, we knew when the schedules came out in August or even before that, when we knew that we had a Saturday game to end the season, that, that was problematic with the playoff committee meeting at, I think the meeting time was at 9. Our time was at noon. Of course, in August, you'd like to think that you already have a playoff spot already wrapped up, but in our case, nothing was guaranteed with, us not being a top 3 team out of the Eastern A. So, it was a short-lived, I enjoyed the victory through the handshake line, but, as I went off the field at Riverview, I found out that we were going to Neshannock, which we were happy to hear that we were in the tournament.
So I know the Raiders are a pretty talented team. You had to earn that victory, 34-20. What stood out about your team's performance against Riverview?
Sure. I thought defensively we really played well. Keeping them. We started the game 3 and out. They have some studs, like you just mentioned. They have some talent on that team. Alex Schulteis is a great tight end for them. We had the game plan for him. They have a good young quarterback, so they're very hard to prepare for with their motions and movement. And I thought we had a good game plan going in defensively, and I think we executed. And of course, offensively we kept the ball rolling with, putting 34 points up. So, really happy to come out with a win and get in the tournament.
Seeing that Brentwood also got in, maybe there's an outside chance you could have made the postseason with a loss, but I'm sure the mindset going in was we need to win this game to really solidify it. Was there any pressure felt amongst the players?
No pressure. I mean, pressure is a privilege. It's something we definitely talked about in our Monday meeting is, hey, we win, we're in, we control our own destiny. We expect to win games like Riverview, and the kids certainly felt that. And, we put it back on the seniors. We have 2 seniors, and, we wanted to play for them and not be their last game and to make the playoffs 3 years in a row after not making it their freshman year. So there was no pressure. We went out there and our game plan prevailed.
It's been a season of streaks for Jeanette. 4 straight wins, 3 consecutive losses, and now you're on a 3-game winning streak once again. Now, I know some of that has to do with the competition you played during those different stretches, but do you feel like your team's kind of playing at a level that could lead to success in the postseason right now?
Yes, I think when the schedule came out again, when it came out, midsummer, early summer, it's all runs together for me, Sean, with the continuum of football. But, when the schedule came out, we knew that stretch was going to be tough, being on the road with those opponents. And, when we lost 3 straight, that certainly wasn't the plan. But we were in our team meeting saying, hey, guys, we got 3 games left. We already won 4 straight this year, so we are very capable of winning 3 straight. And we felt confident if we won 3 straight, we'd be 7-3. And with our non-conference resume, with our wins, we felt like we were going to be, one of the first teams in. I think we're the only 7-3 4th place team that got in. So, we felt fairly confident with that. Battle cry was, we already won 3 straight. Every streak starts with 1. And, obviously that 1-point victory at Brentwood started it all with the streak, and with Springdale at home to finish it up, and at Riverview, at Brentwood, at Riverview, very tough, place to play and opponent. So we were glad to win 3 straight to get in. So that was kind of our battle cry going into the final 3 weeks.
I'm sure everyone thinks of Kimani Brown when they think of the Jayhawks this year. He has been incredible at doing it all. That continued in the win against the Raiders. And then Jace Powell's had a great season as well recently. Sunder has really come on. Is there a guy or maybe a few guys that have been kind of under the radar but have been also crucial to your team's success this year?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to go around. Really just, with our roster size, Sean, it's really everybody. I think the scout team, that no one sits around at our practice just because we need everybody involved with getting ready for a game. Scout team guys, to guys like Zay Jones, who had a really great game at Riverview at the defensive line. Our offensive line, we're very thin, and they've stuck together and won 7 games this year. I thought that was a big question mark going into this year, losing starters. Sean, we replaced 9 starters on either side of the ball, most of which are playing first-year positions. So I just think a collective of just, everyone on our roster, our staff, getting these guys ready to play week in and week out in this brutal Eastern A schedule that, as you mentioned, you have 5 teams in the tournament. So, it's just there's a lot of credit to be pushed around. It's just a complete team effort to get to where we are right now as the 13th seed in the WPIAL playoffs.
Well, you mentioned your seed, number 13, which means you go against number 4, Neshannock. How did that align with your expectations? Understanding that you probably didn't have a lot of time to potentially figure things out because you were playing that game on Saturday.
Yeah, the bracketology of the staff room, right? The whispers of us and the staff and the guys close to the program. It's right where we thought we would be. We got what we deserve. We're the 4 seed out of the Easter day. It was a little bit of a surprise. We got 5 teams in, with Brentwood's record. We thought maybe that they would be left out, but it's not a surprise as far as, we know we have a really tough conference. I mean, Clarendon's probably the best team in the state, and Gridiron Central Catholic had a great win at Leechburg, and Leechburg's great the way they came into our house and beat us. So, we got what we deserve. The Shannock's a top seed, and they're very worthy of that, and we'll be ready to go Friday up in north of Newcastle.
Yeah, and you mentioned Clarendon maybe being the best team in the state. I think they're probably going to be a little motivated that they're the number 2 seed in this bracket, which maybe gives an indication of some real high-end talent. So you go against the 4-seeded Lancers. They're a team that's typically had some great success, including the postseason. What stands out about them?
Sure. Just their size. I think, I spoke to some teams within their conference, and they look like a college football team. I mean, they're 6'4", 285 across the front. They have some good athletes. So that definitely stands out about them. It also stands out about them that they're good at a lot of things on offense. It's hard to pinpoint, a defensive game plan when they're good at a lot of things. So we got to pick and choose what we're going to take away from them and forge ahead with an aggressive game plan against them. As far as defensive side of the ball, offensively, they're very aggressive too. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring pressure. They have a lot of good long athletes, 6'4", 6'3", 6 foot, across the linebacking core, and that same line that's on the offensive line, 285, 250, 240s across their defensive line. So, we feel like they're very worthy of that 4 seed. They're 9-1 for a reason. They're the 4 seed for a reason, and there's a lot of tradition up there. It's a tough environment. They flick the lights when they score, all that happy stuff. So there's a red out, so it's going to be tough to go up there and to win. And we will be prepared in our team meeting and beyond this week to come out with a victory.
Hopefully the lights will not be flickering too much on Friday. Coach, thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate it. Congrats on the postseason appearance and good luck in making the run.
Thanks so much, Sean.
And we thank Thomas Pallone for taking the time, as always, talking about Jeanette Jayhawks football. And hopefully, as we mentioned, we have not just 1, not just 2, but a lot of our Westmoreland County teams that are able to win games and as a result make a deep postseason run, allow us to cover them another week or so. By the way, the Class 1A championship will be the first one at Acrisure Stadium on November 23rd, Saturday. That will be 11 a.m. start time. So hopefully our Westmoreland County fans will have to wake up early that day to see one of our teams playing for a championship down at Acrisure. Well, Flick, we've run down all of the brackets, all of our teams, all the interviews. We also have a couple of college games I wanted to touch on this weekend. Seton Hill trying to make it 2 in a row, playing at Edinboro at noon, and then St. Vincent at Teal Saturday at 1 o'clock. But no offense to those teams, this weekend belongs to high school football. The start of the playoffs is always so special. And yeah, you'll get some lopsided games, but we really get to see a different mentality for the teams that did make it, because they know, especially the seniors, this could be it.
And as I always say, I've said this many times, even if there's a team, and there's probably going to be many teams that go out, and I'm talking WPIAL wide here, and lose lopsided in the first round. For many of those teams, it's just a big accomplishment just to get to the playoffs. That's their big accomplishment. And then they hope to build and, maybe take it a round later, next year, get back to the playoffs, maybe win a game or something like that. So kind of keep that in mind as we see scores coming in and maybe a team gets blown